Welcome to Sundays. I write a videocast stroke podcast. My name's Stuart Lockhead. Got my buddy here as usual, Norrie Stewart. How are you doing, Norrie?
Not too bad. My voice is a bit croaky today, but...
Okay, well, we'll try and not get you too excited. Mind you, I might. Today we've obviously had the Sunday morning TV shows, which they always get Norrie excited. They get me too excited. I had to switch off. My blood pressure and my TV screen are precious to me. However, we can talk about Brexit. We can talk about Peter A. Bell's got a nice little piece about the existential British state and why we're possibly still not going down the right plan with the SNP. And speaking about the SNP, we've got Chris Hanlon, who's now taken over as policy director in the NEC. Anyway, convenor maybe is the term they use. And he's got a nice piece, which is well, it's not even a call for unity, it's a unity piece. It's not his first article since he took over, and he's certainly not being divisive, shall we say.
And I think we should mention the Elliot Bulmer piece.
Oh yes, Elliot
in the
Bulmer.
National.
So I'm going to depend on you to cover that, Norrie.
About federalism.
Right. Brexit, eh?
Well, the Marr show.
The Marr show.
It was Marr at his usual unionist best. I despair of our journalistic class. I really do. Andrew Neil at least used to get annoyed, get into people. He didn't let them off the hook. Marr seems quite happy to amble along like some sort of benevolent grandfather, allowing them to say what they want in the way that they want without pulling them up for anything. I mean, we are on the cusp of essentially destroying 10% of our economy, and it doesn't seem very important to them.
That's because it's a propaganda mouthpiece for the government nowadays. The BBC, well, it is a state broadcaster, and now it does what it's told.
It certainly is beginning to feel more and more like that. And that's it on Marr.
Well, wait, one thing. Didn't you see IDS? Ian Duncan Smith, or was he just on Sky?
No, he wasn't on Marr.
Well, that's the point of where I gave up. It was either that or smash the TV.
Well, he's proven to be a hardline Brexiteer, hasn't he?
That's what I mean. And yet he was just given another opportunity to spout lies and rubbish. He's a gangster.
What I did notice, LBC did an interview with Boris Johnson. And I've got a clip if we can face it.
Yes, I'll be quiet.
But what I will highlight is he made the mistake of admitting no deal was the same thing as his Australia deal. And the form of words, this Australia deal, form of words, I presume, was chosen by the spin doctors to pacify people. But we'll have a quick look at that just now, eh?
Yep.
Here we go. This is Boris Johnson on LBC.
Well, I've just talked to Ursula von der Leyen and updated the cabinet about the contents of the call. And the idea was that when we went out on Wednesday, the hope was that we were going to be able to finish things off on today if there was a deal to be done. As things stand, and this was basically what Ursula and I agreed, I'm afraid we're still very far apart on some key things, but where there's life, there's hope. We're going to keep talking to see what we can do. The UK certainly won't be walking away from the talks. I think people would expect us to go the extra mile. I repeated my offer, which is, if it's necessary to talk to other capitals, and I'm very happy to do that. The Commission very determined to keep the negotiations on the way that they've been done between us and the Commission. That's fine. But I've got to repeat most likely thing now is, of course, that we have to get ready for WTO terms, Australia terms. And don't forget, everybody, we've made huge preparations for this. We've now been at this for 4.5 years. Sam, there's a long time, perhaps more intensively in the last couple of years than previously. But anyway, we've got ready. And anybody who needs to know what to do, get on to gov.uk/transition, see what needs to be done, and get ready for January the 1st.
The Prime Minister speaking in the last few moments after calls with Ursula von der Leyen and his cabinet, saying that it won't be the UK that walks away from those talks.
You want me to explode now or what? Or later?
Well, I actually think we're now at the point that these negotiations are not about the content of an agreement. It's about who walks away.
Yes, it's look. Did you see the headline in the Daily Mail? Absolutely appalling. Accusing Merkel of forcing the Brits to crawl across broken glass. Oh, appalling.
Well, I really do think it's now a tug of war between them about who walks away and then takes the blame.
They are going to blame the EU anyway.
Oh, yes, I know. But if they walk out of the talks, the EU will then be able to blame them. So I think we're going to have, well, talk about never-endings. I think we're going to have a never-ending negotiation. I think this is just going to get pushed out, pushed out, pushed out. And we'll be on WTO terms come January. They'll still be negotiating, but as a way to avoid getting blamed for the disaster after January the 1st.
But look at the headlines in the Times this morning and the Guardian. It's about blockages in the ports. I mean, people will be rushing. Look, it's not even Christmas yet, and I bet the shelves in the supermarkets are emptied before Christmas. Do you want to bet on that?
Well, apparently the government has issued instructions to supermarkets to start stockpiling.
Oh yes, they've got a magic stockpile in a magic warehouse ready to replace all the stuff that the people are going to rush out and
well, they're talking
home.
about shortages of vegetables.
Well, look, I've got a clip that gives us sort of from the EU side. Shall I share that?
Yeah, this is the French woman.
The Spanish Foreign Minister.
Sorry, Spanish.
Let's share the screen. And we've got it ready. Share computer sound. And where is she gone? There she is. Here she goes.
It's not to assert people's sovereignty, country's sovereignty. Trade deals are not made to do that. It's pretty clear when you do a trade deal that you're a sovereign nation. They are made to manage interdependence. The UK and the European Union are interdependent. So let's build a deal that reflects the need to manage this interdependence.
I mean, I better end that, haven't I? Stop share. You can't. It's not about a negotiation. It's about you're facing down the other side. We're getting all we ever get from the British side is that we demand our sovereignty, but a trade deal is all about sharing some sovereignty for the sake of the trade.
Yeah, but no. I mean, these. Well, I'm not going to say all Brexiteers because a huge chunk of them, I think, thought they would get a deal.
Oh, you're talking about the voters. I tend to reserve the Brexiteers for the politicians.
Well, even amongst them, I would imagine a majority of them thought there would be a deal in the offing. Nicola Sturgeon from the Labour Party, if you remember,
oh God,
she was convinced that there would be a deal.
Where did she get that from?
Well, I think, she's German by birth, so I presume she listened. I presume she listened to contacts she had in Europe.
You can't leave the club and still, like the gym or the sports club, and still have all the privileges. It is impossible. That's why there are rules for a club.
It can if the handbook you use for negotiations is an imperialist British Empire handbook. And that's the problem.
Yes, now we get the truth.
Well, to me, that's the problem. That these guys genuinely believe that there is something exceptional about, well, I'm not going to say Britain, I'm going to say England. There is something they believe in the blood of the English that forces people to bow down to them.
No, I don't. Yes and no. I still see the ghost of Steve Bannon behind this. Now, who was it over the last couple of days, summed it up? I think it was George Monbiot, and I was trying to find the clip because it was a video clip, and he's actually summed it up very well. There are actually two kinds of Tories. There's the old-fashioned type that do still want to do deals with the abroad, and then there's the ones that are, behind them is Steve Bannon and the gangsters and the hedge funds and all the rest of it. Not the people that run companies that make things. There's loads of Tory supporters that actually manufacture things and run businesses that are not killing the country. But the City of London and the money, big, international money is what's driving this country into destruction.
Well, I don't agree with that, because the short-term returns are short-term.
What short-term?
Well, I mean, you're talking about hedge funds that play the markets, so they're going to bet against the pound and so on to make their money.
No, it's much bigger than that.
Well, I don't agree with that, because I'm afraid most of these people actually make their money out of making deals. They don't make their money out of destroying deals.
Well, the story in a couple of sentences, the story that I heard was that these same people, they brought down the Chilean government with monetarists. Remember, it was all called monetarists, and what was that fellow's name?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But it didn't matter what happened in Chile. Well, it did to the people that died, but it didn't matter on a world scale. They also apparently did it where they had forced Indonesia into becoming a monetarist country with no regulations, forcing the UK into becoming a pirate country outside normal international rules will be their biggest scalp ever, and the effect could be far bigger than you and I can even imagine.
Who was this? George Monbiot?
I think so.
Well, I'm afraid George is walking about with his eyes shut. Britain already is the biggest pirate state in the world. The amount of money laundering and shenanigans that goes on through the City of London. I mean, come on.
Well, this is the bit I was
all your
talking about
offshore
yesterday.
havens are British protectorates.
Yeah. Not all of them, but most of them are.
It's
But
difficult to get even more pirate-like.
But sure, did I not say on Friday's show, not yesterday's show, Friday's show, that, I mean, it boils down to the timing. It is about the EU decided that they were going to put some regulations on the City of London, on financial, financial dealings across the EU, and that was it. From then on, Britain had to be out.
I don't agree with you on this one. I don't think it is a small group of Bannonites. I think it's a small group that managed to get away with telling big lies that were believed.
Well, they're just the foot soldiers, Norrie.
Yeah, well, the point I'm making here, Stuart, is this is the fault of the people that voted for Brexit.
Well, yes, but they're
not just the politicians, the people who refuse to listen or refuse to go and research or find out. And they, they've got their excuse. If there's a no-deal Brexit, they're all going to turn around and say, but we didn't vote for that. We voted for a deal. And they were told
$1 million a week.
Well, they were told they'd get a deal. Nobody told anybody in the voting public that this was going to be a no deal.
You're just going back to last year's election, aren't you?
Well, no, I'm going back to the referendum in 2016 and last year's election. So, in effect, they were lied to. So, but they were ignorant enough, let's not call them stupid, but they allowed themselves to remain ignorant about the possibility of no deal.
Well, they were bound to believe what the Daily Mail and the Telegraph told them. And
why? I don't.
Yes, but that's what the majority of people buy. And they're fed the
Well-
same thing from the local radio, talk shows, BBC, Sky.
Well, therefore, I've got every right to accuse them of being responsible.
Well, I'm not sure who's responsible. Bad people or stupid people, or both.
But I actually think that the Tory party, I mean, you said there were 2 bits to it. I think there are 3 bits to it.
Okay.
There are One Nation Tories. There are, what will we call them, greedy Tories, where it's all about money for them and money for their own kind. But there's a third section that I would call now British nationalists. In fact, no, English nationalists. They're the ones that believe this trope that England is somehow superior. And Europe's an example of it. How they treat Scotland's an example of it. And I'm afraid they're the ones in government. And it's going to cost them dear. I cannot see
Who's
Northern
gonna cost?
Ireland being part of the UK in 20 years. And I don't want to see Scotland being part of the UK in 5 years. So I think the Little Englanders are going to end up with exactly what they want. Little England.
Well, that's what I mean. I was going to ask you, who's it going to cost? Well, it's not going to cost these people these politicians with their gold-plated pensions and their directorships and they're on the board of everything under the sun. They're sitting nicely, aren't they?
Well, Stuart, the problem with the future is you can't foretell it. I don't know. Maybe there's a revolution brewing in the council houses of England, or the council houses left in England. I don't know, but the unforeseen consequences of a Brexit deal that makes the majority of people in this country poorer are exactly that, unforeseeable.
Well, the last time there was an uprising in England was against poll tax. It was a year after it had been introduced in Scotland. And there was a riot in Trafalgar Square, was it not, live on TV. And that was the last time, as far as I recall.
Well, my next problem with, if that pans out, if people do take to the streets, this government will start banning news programs showing it. That's how close I think we are to
Well, you've got
a dictatorship.
Yes, you've got Priti Patel, who's the kind of Home Secretary who would just use all emergency powers.
Well, I think Priti Patel's nearer Winston Churchill than Boris Johnson is. So I think she would put tanks on the street. I mean, they're already talking like we've still got an empire, throwing gunboats.
I was going to bring that up.
Into the channel.
Right, do you know who's got? It's a French company that's got the contract to handle British fishing, to stop French boats fishing in British waters at the moment.
Have we not got a boat that's at the moment being built in France?
Yes, and instead of giving the order, sort of 5 small warships, the size you need to stop fishing boats fishing in the wrong place. Yes, instead of the order coming to Scotland, I think it went to France.
And I do love the idea that the channel being what, 10% of the fishing, if even, is getting 4 gunboats and Scotland's getting out.
I don't want them. We don't want their gunboats up here. What are they going to do? I mean, the last time the Russian fleet arrived in the Murray Firth, it took them a day and a half to send a frigate up from Portsmouth.
Yeah,
By that time the Russians were gone.
And they got a warning from a fishing boat. Maybe it was a French fishing boat.
Maybe the French fishing boats. Oh, the Ruskies are here. It's probably started doing a deal. Have you got any cheap vodka?
But the whole thing is just spiraling into a pit of stupidity. By the way, I see Mark Francois is back at work.
So he's not been. They've dropped all charges, all rape charges against him.
I'm not sure we can say that because we don't know for sure that he was the one.
Well, they announced that they dropped all sexual charges against them.
Against the anonymous.
Oh, did they? Oh, right.
Anonymous. I think
He still wasn't named then.
I think one news agency has named him.
How come a Tory MP isn't named, but Alex Salmond gets spread all over the press?
That's a really stupid question.
Come on, call the viewers and listeners why I'm being stupid.
Our viewers and listeners aren't stupid. They know exactly why. Because one's a Tory MP and one is an SNP or was an SNP member and a SNP party leader.
And a threat, and a real threat to the union.
I'm not sure he was, but
Many people regarded him as such.
It doesn't matter if he was at the time, he gets punished for having been. That's the way the rules work. Talking
So we move
about,
on.
well, I was about to say, talking about Little England and British exceptionalism, Elliot Bulmer has a nice piece in the National. Elliot is ex-Royal Navy.
Submarines.
He teaches, well, he did teach in Belgium or Denmark, I think. I think he's actually moved on from that.
He's back in Scotland, but you're right, yeah.
But he's a constitutional expert. He writes constitutions, teaches about constitutions, the constitutions of countries, that is. He's got a nice piece in the National about why federalism wouldn't work in the UK. And he is essentially saying it's because the UK class is used to winner takes all. And in order to have a federal system, that would have to change. There would have to be negotiations between whether it was 4 countries or 3 countries and the regions of England, and they're just not capable of doing it. Citing Brexit as an example of why they're not capable of doing it. A very good piece. Well written, easy to read and understand. I wish he'd taught me at school. He writes very well, Elliot. You didn't catch it, no?
No, the idea, if you think back to the proposal, when was it? It was immediately after Tony Blair came into power, and the proposal that we'd have regional governments in England and devolution in Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland fell over straight away. But let's not go into the detail of that. Don't forget it. The first thing they did after the Tories came in was that they had a stupid referendum about proportional representation, which wasn't even about proportional representation.
That was so they could go into coalition with the Lib Dems.
There are things that English politics just won't countenance, and one of them is devolution, because they can't decide which county, which part of York, let alone Yorkshire, one clear polity, one clear old-fashioned county. They've been having a row for the last 3 years about whether there would be one county of Yorkshire with one mayor. South Yorkshire decided, no, we wanted our own mayor.
Well, what I find interesting is the Tories support the mayors because it's one person in charge.
Yeah, they don't like it when they're Labour mayors.
Well, they don't like democracy. They don't like assemblies. It's quite easy to deal with one person. If he happens to be the same colour as your rosette, great. But if he isn't the same colour as your rosette, anything that goes wrong in the City of London gets blamed on Sadiq Khan. Likewise, Manchester, there is one face to throw the darts at. So that suits them. Whereas if they have to sit in an assembly with other parties and come to compromise decisions, they don't like that because they have to carry some of the blame.
It's basically never, ever going to happen.
It's never going to happen in my lifetime, that's for sure. It's going to take, I would think, 2 generations.
Even if you step outside the situation and say, right, we've got these isles, this Atlantic archipelago, they can't even agree on a name. Some people call it the British Isles, but the Irish don't like that, and you can understand that. So you've got this bunch of islands, and we are all related culturally one way or another, and you know, we all breed together, you know, we're all mixed up, our families and all the rest of it. But you still need to think about how do we relate to each other? And we always will have to relate to each other one way or another politically. But having one huge country like England in that same organization, you're going to have to think very, very hard about how you work it out. It's like sleeping with an elephant.
That's one solution.
What's the solution? I haven't even suggested one.
Well, the idea of you work it out and you find a way to make it a federal state. But
No, I wouldn't use the word federal.
I'm willing to bet money in a dark room in the bowels of Westminster, there is a group of Tories and possibly Labour people sitting around a table discussing how to get rid of devolution. So you don't have 4 countries. I'm convinced that there will be a group somewhere in Westminster.
You talk about me and my conspiracy theories, Norrie. That's a bit weird.
Well, the Lords have already attempted a version of it where they've effectively tried to take the right to a referendum away from Scotland. And how long do you think it would take? They've already done it with the internal market bill.
Yeah, but okay,
they take long. They've
got an 80-seat majority at the moment. That's true. So they, you know, and that's another point. How did that come about? Let's not talk about that today. But in other respects, Britain is actually weaker now than it was a year ago. Ireland, Northern Ireland, that border has moved from the partition border between the north and south to the Irish Sea. The Southern Ireland government, the Irish government is now stronger in its in its dealings with the UK than it ever was. Scotland has had 15 polls in a row saying we want our independence. And even in Wales, the pro-Indy side has doubled or trebled their support from about 8% to 24% or something now.
I see that all as being arguments for the plan B that we don't appear to have.
Whose plan B? Ours?
Scotland's plan B, yep, because that is another reason for the Westminster government not to acquiesce to a referendum. Oh,
yes. I mean, fair enough. I mean, but that doesn't mean to say that they're sitting there in a committee in a basement of Whitehall thinking, oh, well, let's work out some kind of federal solution. They will be working out a federal suggestion of any possible poll that's coming up.
I don't think anybody at Westminster is talking about a federal solution. They're talking about a solution that basically takes power from the devolved administrations. The solution, the federal solution, is far too complicated for them.
I'm totally in agreement with you there. What I'm saying is, but they will talk federalism. They'll stick Gordon Brown up before the next election in May, and they'll talk federalism over and over again.
They might even set up a committee to look into it.
Exactly. And a lot of soft yes voters will think, oh, well, yes, let's just go halfway. Let's not scare the horses.
It will be designed to waste time. The only weapon they really have now, unless they do legislate against a Scottish referendum, outlawing it or the possibility of it, the only weapon they have is dragging it out and hoping there's a dramatic change over that time span. And we're not talking a couple of years here, we're talking decades.
What happens though if we get into sort of the end of January? We've already got shortages. Honda, they stopped building Honda cars in Swindon because their parts aren't arriving because of trouble at the ports. IKEA have said they've got loads of their products they can't get in. There's problems at the ports. We've just seen what they've announced. The government itself has warned people to stock supermarkets to stock. Where are they going to get the stock? How are they going to get it here? And we're looking also at a possible third wave of COVID following this holiday, this break 5-day break over Christmas.
I'm sending
are-
my wife out to stockpile porridge.
Yeah, I'm going out for toilet rolls tomorrow. Stay away. I'm going with a big trolley.
Oh dear.
Shall
So
we talk about Peter Bell's got? I mean, he's got his view on many things, but his view on the union is, you know, some days he goes, I think he goes off color, and other days he comes back on. Today he's saying the concept of Great Britain. Why is the union so precious to the ruling elites? And his case today is that it's not really about the money. It's without the union, the pretense of the British state as a major player on the world stage becomes unsustainable.
I would put it another way. It's far easier for a certain type of Englishman to be partnered with a Scotsman because they consider them to be a lesser individual. We've talked about this before. Everybody in these isles, every country has a stereotype. You've got Jock, you've got Taffy, and you've got Paddy. What do we call an Englishman?
Geordie,
No,
Brummie,
that's to do with towns,
Cockney.
to do with part of a town. We don't have a collective noun for the English. And that's because it wouldn't be borne by the English. They want to be superior. And, you know, the Scots are tight, the Paddies are stupid, and the Taffies are thieves. That's, you know, and until that actually changes, this will never be a union of equals. Because right down to the bottom of society, they don't believe we're equal. Simple.
I'll give you a quote for because it was a very short piece from Peter. So his final paragraph, he says, in British nationalist ideology, the fight to preserve the Union is existential. We must understand that the fight to restore Scotland's independence is also an equally existential, because in the name of preserving their precious Union, the British ruling elites will happily destroy everything that we think of as Scotland.
Yeah, and he's right. He's right. And at the moment, with an 80% majority in the Commons, a piece of legislation that basically totally cuts the legs away from any aspirations to independence could be passed.
Almost certainly will be, because it's barely above the radar in London. The part of the internal market bill that upset the relationship with Northern Ireland, and they had President Biden supporting the Irish point of view. Who have we got shouting for Scotland's point of view?
The Northern Irish are in a far stronger position than we are. Far stronger.
Well, they don't have the upcoming president of the United States, and well, we don't on our side, do we?
Well, they're now in a much stronger position.
But can I remind you what Ursula von der Leyen said about a year ago about Nicola Sturgeon? She's a great admirer of Nicola Sturgeon and would welcome an application from Scotland to rejoin the EU if it was independent.
Well, this is from social media, and I haven't been able to find out how true it is, but Macron apparently has made a statement as well. Here's Jimmy.
That's good. Well, it's excellent. You never know what happens in our show. He's in his cab.
How do you, chaps?
No,
nice to see you, Jimmy.
Right,
Right.
Jimmy. You've got a 5-minute soapbox.
Yeah, we've just been quoting von der Leyen. I just quoted Ursula von der Leyen. She said that a year ago that she's a great admirer of Nicola Sturgeon, and any application from Scotland to rejoin the EU once it becomes independent would be favourably welcomed.
I don't know if Ursula wants to watch her back on that one. Nicola will probably have her job.
Right,
Very
Jimmy,
astute.
come on, soapbox. What have you got to say today?
Well, I think people are getting a bit exercised about everything, mate. End of the day, we know Boris isn't interested in getting the deal. Boris is only interested in Boris, and it's down to what money he can make out of anything. So there's nobody out there that's willing to give Boris a couple of £1 million for a soft Brexit. There's plenty of people that are willing to give Boris a couple of £1 million for a hard one because they stand to make a fortune on it. So we can't expect, whatever deal he comes up with now is a nonsense. It'd still be a disastrous exit from the European Union. That's what's going to happen there. In Scotland, I don't know if Nicola's arm's going to be twisted to move Edinburgh to tier 2 on Tuesday. I think she desperately doesn't want to do it, but I think the courts have thrown it right back in her lap by saying, well, Ken, what? We're not even going to listen to this case because it's time limited to Tuesday.
Yeah,
They tossed it straight back at her because it's a political decision, as is the decision to use emergency powers gained under royal prerogative, which I personally think she's way too comfortable wielding.
So what we're talking about here, the fact that Edinburgh is not good, it is at the moment still in level 3, but you're saying that it could be going down to level 2.
The wider thing for me is the fact that, as I say, she's awfully comfortable wielding powers that no First Minister of Scotland was. It was never envisioned that any First Minister of Scotland would be able to shut the country down in the manner that she's done. And
can you imagine the debacle if every decision that they've had to make over the last 9 months had to go in front of Parliament?
Absolutely, mate. It would have been a debacle, but at the end of the day, as Democrats, are we happy with the autocratic wielding of power that Nicola Sturgeon is engaged in at the moment, and and appears to be happy to engage in it? Because, as I say, she came out kicking on Wednesday when Richard Leonard suggested, or Thursday, when Richard Leonard suggested to her that her decision-making process was flawed. She came out kicking and started, as far as I'm concerned, bullshitting about a tiny statistically anomalous increase in cases in Edinburgh over the last 2 or 3 days, when the downward trend has been evident for 6 weeks, 7 weeks. It's really since the start of September we had a spike when the students came back, and since then it's been on a downward trend.
Well, I can't agree with you, Norrie. Well, maybe not in Scotland, but in Edinburgh, but in Scotland, that there's an upturn today.
Yeah, because they're looking for an upturn, Stuart. She desperately did.
Well, she's got it.
I'm sorry, but if you rattle an extra 13,000 people through the testing process, you can make the stats say whatever you want. We all know that they can do that.
It's gone above 5. It's up to 5.2% of the.
It was 7% earlier in the week.
But it was
tested. Is
all I'm saying is that those will be the figures that they'll be talking about on Tuesday. Is it Tuesday they announce the decision?
They make the decision on Tuesday. Yeah. Part of me thinks it would be great to put this in front of Parliament, but you need to find a way to hold the parliamentarians that make the wrong decisions, i.e. the Tories and the Labour Party that force decisions simply to hurt the SNP government, responsible. And I don't see how you do that.
I'm not so sure it should go in front of Parliament when you see the calibre of the people in it. I mean, I'm sorry, but I didn't think James Kelly or Anna Sarwar, or there was a couple, God, who was a sick SNP bird that had a question on Thursday, and she couldn't hold the piece of paper in front of her face and read the question at the same time. She was toiling. How on earth have we got a Parliament that's 20 years old and we've got people like this in it who can't clap their hands and fart at the same time without an assistant helping them?
Oh, you could do like that. Rub your tummy and scratch your head.
I'm solidly on the SNP side on this. I'm sorry, or Nicola Sturgeon's side. I'm almost certain that the decision has been taken so that people don't come pouring in to do their Christmas shopping.
Aye, it has, Norrie, but she's not got the balls to say that. She'll stand there and lie in Parliament instead. She says that she trusts people She trusts people to behave. She doesn't trust people to behave, or she would bloody show them some trust.
Did
People
you
are
see
still
that?
coming in.
Well, the only way
George-
you trust people is by having no tears.
Did you
George
see
Street,
the
even.
pictures from
George
Birmingham?
Norrie, people have came in to do their shopping regardless. The only thing different is they can't go and get something to eat and have a bevy while they're doing it.
Is it busy in the town then?
It's rammed, mate, and I'm telling you, not all these cars have come from the city of Edinburgh area.
Oh, I bet you. I mean, I looked at the pictures from Birmingham. They had huge queues to get into Primark. I mean, huge queues. It was like a football match outside, going through the turnstiles.
So my question would be, it's rammed under tier 3. How much more rammed would it be under tier 2?
I don't think it can get much more rammed, mate. There's no parking spaces. People are coming in willy-nilly regardless. So her travel restrictions are meaningless. She's choosing to ignore the fact that they're coming into shop. She is absolutely choosing to ignore that and concentrate on, but they're not coming in to drink. Is it because she's a joyless fun sucker? Possibly. Is it because she wants to start up the Scottish Temperance League for the 21st century? Very possible too. But the realities of what's going on here is that she's consigning the hospitality industry to the bin because she personally doesn't use the hospitality industry and doesn't particularly care about their lobbying power.
So in effect, what you're saying is Nicola Sturgeon wants to destroy the hospitality industry.
No, I'm saying Nicola Sturgeon wants to wield power, and this is an easy way for her to wield power. Nicola Sturgeon has made a decision, and it's not the first time she's made a decision that's impacted people who drink. I don't know if she's a religious person at all, but she certainly seems to have some kind of... I'm going to get chased by the police here. I'll stay on broadcasting just in case, because that'll be fun for the police moving me on for double parking.
What does the sign in your cab say? Because I can only read it backwards.
No card machine at the moment.
No card machine.
All right. Okay.
That's us getting on for 45 minutes anyway, guys. Much as we'd like to hang about and wait for the police to lift you, Jimmy.
Nah, they're not going to, mate. They've obviously got bored.
Anything else apart from your now regular I hate Nicola's rant?
Well, I didn't just hate her, but I hate everybody running about her enough. You know what I mean? I didn't think anybody's achieving grand things in Holyrood at the moment.
I was going to ask you about what you think the chances are for Rangers in the Europa League.
I don't care, mate. Mickey Mouse competition. I'll set up for the Champions League next year.
Confidently said.
Aye. I would like to, while I'm ranting though, can we have a wee discussion about Kirsty Blackman?
What's she done now?
Well, she's still up in arms about this decision that was taken last week around a gender issue and using the word sex instead of gender. But for somebody who stepped down from her deputy leadership role because she was feeling the pressures and supposedly wanted to spend a bit more time with her family, this is someone who, I'll quite openly tell people I've suffered with depression in the past. Kirsty slap bang in the middle there. If she's came off her meds, she needs to get back on them. And if she's not on them, she needs to go and see a doctor because she's that far down the rabbit hole, all she can see is rabbit shit. Everybody else has backed away for this decision. The SNP, I think Wing said the SNP decided to go along with the vote because they knew that they were going to lose it. So
it's only the Greens and the Lib Dems that stuck with Blackman's position.
Yeah, but you've got Kirsty Blackman basically saying that the entire SNP block of MSPs are bigots and transphobes. She can't say that, or the party can't allow her to say that. They have to take her out of the front line, or they have to withdraw the whip.
Fair. Seems fair.
I saw a couple of comments she made, and they didn't actually seem that strong, to be honest. I mean, it was diametrically opposed to the decision that was made.
Yeah, it's further down in the threads that she loses the plot.
Yeah,
she seems a capable young woman, but I think she's as I say, I think she's up there doing the rabbit hole that she can't see.
Well, if you're in public life and you say you're taking a break, you should take a break. You shouldn't pop up your head and just get shot.
Well, no doubt it'll come out in the wash.
What do we think about John Swinney?
What's he done?
No, I was just, again, mate, I'm looking at the people running about Nicola at the moment, and I'm not that impressed. I'm beginning to believe Wings is right, that she surrounds herself with sycophants of people that will go along with her. I was so impressed with John Swinney when he was finance minister, mate. But as deputy leader and health minister, has he done a lot right?
He's got one of the two totally thankless, can he win under any circumstances jobs.
Education
And the NHS. The two jobs that you need to be a bit special to do well.
Well, Jane Freeman's doing the NHS now. Why couldn't it have been left to her to handle it instead of Nicola?
Well, I actually think that's the indicator of how good you are. Jane Freeman, Swinney, and Kate Forbes have to be three of the best. The other one being, what's his name, Russell, who took on the Brexit remit.
I think Swinney's just clever.
He is clever.
That doesn't mean he's good.
No, but he is clever, and it's politics. He's clever at politics. You know, I mean.
And I think be careful what you wish for with Kate Forbes.
Well, especially you, Jimmy.
Especially
you, Jimmy. She's a wee free, is she not?
Aye.
I know. And on top of that, don't forget, Mary Black looked good when she started, but look where she is now.
Yeah.
She's still good. She just disagrees with us on one major issue.
Yeah, well, but she allows that major issue to colour her attitude to everything.
That's the point.
Well,
if you allow,
would you rather have her on your side or their side?
Ooh.
Didn't ask me that question, mate. I'd rather she wasn't on any side at this moment in time. I'd rather have her back at Glasgow University, finishing her degree.
She got her degree. She got a first.
Jimmy, we would have finished, if you hadn't popped up there, we would have finished with, instead of throwing brickbats, saying something nice about Chris Hanlon, who'd taken over as convener, Scottish SNP Policy Development Convener. And then he's actually written something that's in the National today. And instead of causing more division, he's actually written a nice piece, but sticking to his guns, which is quite a good thing.
Yeah, I've seen that piece. I agree with virtually everything you had to say. It's not his place to write policy. Policy comes for the party. Policy comes for the members through the conference.
He seemed to be saying
everything that he needed to say, didn't he?
Yeah, he seemed to be saying that he wasn't in favour of when they banned National Council. He sounds as though he's wanting this new National Assembly to replace National Council, effectively, to be a forum for the members.
I do worry when I hear things like National Assembly. It reminds me too much of Constitutional Convention and that. No fan of talking shops, as you know. Particularly when professional politicians are suggesting talking shops, because basically that usually tends to mean that they don't want to hear any answers. But perfectly happy for people to talk about things.
He has one little dig. He says we can either attempt to build back better as an independent nation with all the economic levers safely in the hands of grown-ups in Holyrood. I'll just leave it at there. I wonder what he means. Who are the ones in Holyrood not grown up?
I think we should, us three should start a national campaign to ban politicians from alliterative speech. I'm sick of hearing build back better. I'd cheerfully take a bloody size A cricket bat to the back of the skull of anybody who utters it over the next week.
Yeah, well, but that's what works on the side of a bus. Especially if it's 3 words.
Yeah.
Take back control.
Rhetoric, dear boy, rhetoric.
I'll see your rhetoric and raise you a cricket bat to the skull.
I think that's the name of today's show.
I think we should call it a day, Stuart.
Yes, okay.
We're getting on for the hour. Okay, I'll close out then.
Okay then.
Thanks for getting here, Jimmy. Well done,
No
my
worries,
man.
mate.
Thanks, Stuart
No
Lockhead.
bother.
I'm Norrie Stewart. And thanks for listening, folks. We'll catch you all tomorrow.
Cheerio.